Hi everyone, welcome back to my podcast, Ask Bone Teacher, where I answer your formal questions in an informal way. So today my guest is Dr. Sharon Narula, a creative and inquisitive mind and a keen learner in life. She has recently joined psychiatry residency at AIIMS Bhubaneswar this July session. So hi Dr. Sharon, how are you?
Hi sir, I'm good. Thank you for having me here.
You must be ecstatic about this success. How does it feel?
I feel so elated, excited, and lucky too actually. There's a mixed bag of emotions right now I'm feeling. I never actually imagined that I'd be a resident at a central institute.
Isn't it awesome that you got what you wanted? Your dreams coming true, you landing up in the Central Institute. Did you expect this kind of success so soon?
No, not really. At least not so soon. The quote, life seldom turns the way we expect it to, actually fits my case.
I mean, you have backed a great specialty in a great center. Why would you say something like that? Why do you think it has not turned out the way you expected it to?
Well, sir, I really did not think that I'll be having a rank of 985 in the mid-year AIIMS exam. I was not expecting it at all. My NEET PG 2020 attempt during my internship didn't go that well. I did prepare for it with my internship going on, but my rank turned out to be around 19,000, and at this rank, I couldn't get my desired seat. So initially on the day of results, which was 30th Jan 2020, that was the day just before my birthday, and I was completely shattered that day.
Oh my god, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what it must feel like just a day before your birthday. It must have been horrible.
Yeah, it was actually very sad for me. I didn't even cut my birthday cake. Though later on I came to terms with it and reminded myself that when going gets tough, I should get tougher.
So what did you do? How were you tough?
So, in the beginning of Feb 2020, I started preparing for NEET PG 2021. I made a schedule, started abiding by it. I decided to give these mid-year exams as practice tests.
Okay.
I didn't actually think that I'll be able to crack them. In my head, actually, so the November exams and the Jan PG were the real targets. To my surprise, the AIIMS results were in my favor and I didn't actually expect them.
So that must have been a very sweet surprise. So how was your preparation like before you gave AIIMS? I mean, how could you get in even though your preparation was incomplete?
I actually made all of my notes of most of the subjects during my internship year, which started in March 2019. I used to see video lectures on Marrow, make my own notes. So since I hadn't prepared for PG any time before my internship, I had to start from scratch this time. So it took me almost October to November of 2019 to complete these notes and most of the Q bank along with it.
Oh my god. So you made your own notes. That's honestly such a refreshing change from everyone getting ready-made notes or Xerox notes or their notes from their friends these days. Why did you opt for that? I want to know, because most of the students I come across or I talk on social media or on my Telegram group or my Instagram handle, they would always want to kind of get away from that work of making their own notes, and they want kind of this ready-made and Xerox notes. Why not just get it like everyone else? Why did you make your own notes?
Well, I did make my own notes almost of all the subjects in the year of internship itself. I don't know about others, but personally, I just cannot read from other person's notes. You can say I'm a bit paranoid.
Do
but
you not trust other people?
No, I don't know, but I can't trust anybody else's handwriting. I had to write them by myself. My brain basically didn't give me any other option. And I believe whatever I scribble in my own handwriting, it stays with me for a much longer time. that's why I had to opt for this longer route.
I mean, Sharon, I agree with you on all accounts. I mean, there are plenty of studies suggesting that making notes yourself after basically processing the information in your mind yourself will help you comprehend better and remember longer. See, I'm not saying just mechanically writing things down. That's not going to help much. I guess that also has its own utility in probably keeping you awake while you're watching the videos or are in class. But essentially, the best notes are the ones you write after you consume the information, process it in your own mind, and then sit down and write it as a summary yourself in your own words. It's much like teaching the subject to yourself, and this, I believe, and studies have shown, has a much lasting impact. So coming back to you, did this work in your favor? I mean, preparing your own notes and taking this long journey from March all the way down up to November, did it help in your NEET PG exam?
I believe eventually it did, although I didn't have much time left to revise these notes completely, even once before my Jan exam. So
Okay.
my first big exam for PG was going to be NEET PG 2020.
Okay.
I tried squeezing a few subjects here and there before the exam and solved a few GTs before it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the problem for my preparation was that it was less structured and the time was less in hand. The exam date arrived, I attempted it and completed it well within the time. So for me, time management was never an issue.
Okay.
But the negative marking was, which made my result even worse. I regretted attempting most of the questions.
I mean, I do hear this a lot from a lot of students. I mean, they keep telling me I get more negatives and that kind of spoils my rank. But before I actually dive into that and answer that, I just want to ask you, did you actually practice GTs before NEET PG? Be honest about it. Be honest about it.
Okay, no, not many. I think that's why I think probably I lacked the skill of managing my negative marks.
That's true. See, you say attempting more questions made your score worse. Now, I want to ask you, was it really the number of questions you attempted, or essentially the guesswork which made it worse?
Now I think it was more of the guesswork actually, rather than the number of attempts.
Absolutely.
I regretted it later, attempting questions for which I only had a vague idea. Now I look back, I think I should have only attempted questions which I had known the exact answer, or confusion was between two options only.
So see, Sharon, this is essentially what a lot of students, make grave mistakes in. They don't attempt GTs and they postpone it till the end. See, GTs, as I've told you, they teach you the exam skill of, mastering the art of ruling out options. So unless you practice GTs, you'll not be in a position to rule out options. And it doesn't matter how much you read. What matters is what shows up in the exam. And what shows up in the exam can be new a lot of times. And when it is new, you have to recall information from your previous preparation and then, rule out options. And then you can probably, get a higher score. So you have to practice GTs. I think that is the biggest mistake you made. So what did you decide to do in order to change your approach after not getting the rank that you hoped for after, NEET PG 2020?
So basically, after the results, as I told you, I was sad, but then later on, I started preparing for the next set of exams. I shut down all of my social media except WhatsApp and Telegram. So I wanted to be free from the distractions. And honestly, I didn't want to see people around me getting seats when I didn't get anything yet.
I mean, I respect your honesty, Dr. Sharon. Not a lot of people actually own up to this, and there is nothing to be ashamed of when you get rid of social media and avoid people just because they probably will see success before you. Because see, we human beings, I mean, we are competitive people and we are competitive beings, and someone getting their dream branch or their dream seat obviously doesn't change much for us, but we do start feeling bad. So why invite this unnecessary negativity in your already sad negative life? just I feel the best thing to do is avoid social media altogether. But if you can't and you want to keep in touch with, say, people like me, or watch my YouTube videos, or stay in touch with me on Instagram and Telegram, the least you can do is, block the people that you don't want to see temporarily, at least, because they will not directly harm your preparation, but there'll always be this subconscious thought process going on in your mind telling you कि यार उसको मिल गया मुझे नहीं मिला, and that's always painful.
I actually agree. You have actually spoken what I would have elaborated about it, what was going on in my mind.
I know my students very well. So then how did you move on? What was your next step? What was your next plan of action apart from, getting rid of social media?
Okay, after that, basically, I had a small schedule diary in which I used to write down tasks and schedules I had to complete in the stipulated time.
Okay.
I have always been a person who prefers planning a lot.
So you're a smart person.
So I made a proper schedule covering all the 19 subjects. Basically, the first reading should have been done around August 2020, and a series of revision would follow after that.
Okay.
This time, I included GTs early on in my preparation because
Learning
I remember you
mistakes.
saying we should start taking GTs yesterday.
Absolutely.
And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes in my preparation the last time around.
All right, so I think that's a very decent strategy, and banking on GTs for long-term practice is a very smart move. So looking at it from a very different view right now, if not for AIIMS and your success in it, you would have probably been still studying now.
Yeah, but the different subjects. I guess I'll be studying psychiatry now.
So what was your approach? I mean, I want to know the specific approach, since you've already watched the videos and made your own notes. How did you proceed forwards?
I joined DAMS TND in February itself to have a push, and
Okay.
I took plan B of Marrow 2. I used to complete my tasks on most of the days. I didn't used to basically measure the hours as such, but I made sure those tasks were struck off each day from my schedule diary.
All right. So you're saying that you wouldn't worry about the number of hours you're putting in, but for reference for all the listeners, I want to know how many hours per day were you studying on an average day?
So basically, on an average day, I would read around 7 to 8 hours. I believe everyone has their own method of doing things.
So you do realize that 7 to 8 hours is actually above average. Not a lot of people do that. So you are actually putting in the hours.
Yes, I think quality and quantity did go hand in hand in this case. This is what worked for me. And I know myself the best, and I use it as a plus point in my preparation.
Right. So you were putting in those 7 to 8 hours every day. So now I want to know exactly, can you break it down for me? What were you doing in those hours?
So I used to learn the notes, do the Q bank, give the TND and SWTs, and repeat this process for basically each subject. I did dynamically update my notes in this process by adding new information. So basically this comprised of my first reading for a subject.
So you were adding information to your notes from QBank and test and discussion. No, I just want to ask you, see, what was your threshold of adding this new information to your notes? Because I get a lot of questions from students asking me, sir, do we have to add everything? Sir, should we add everything? Or should we only add things that are important? So what was your threshold?
So I didn't add anything and everything new I used to encounter. I had my own filtration process for it. This stuff I used to think is quite common and I got them wrong in the Q bank were the things which I added to my notes. The very rare kind of things which I would come across, I would just bookmark them, keeping those to see on a later date. I would later solve those in the form of custom modules. So basically during my metro rides or whenever I had free time.
So I guess it comes down to your personal filtration process, and I think that is what separates the winners from the people who couldn't succeed. So everyone basically has their own filtration process, and how do you master the filtration process is the question. And Sharon, I personally believe, and I think it holds true for you as well, is the fact that the more you practice these questions and the more you run through grand tests, you develop this art of filtering the things that are relevant and important and leaving out everything. Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree actually.
So
Get better.
Yes, you get better at picking up stuff that you feel is essential and leaving out the rest. And I think that is the biggest challenge the students feel. They don't have that skill, and so they struggle and they keep on adding information unnecessarily. So I urge all of you people listening to this podcast to kind of develop this art, and the only way you can honestly develop this is by practicing more questions. So anyways, so how did your AIMS exam go? I mean, this was not in your plan, this was not in your agenda, and you obviously didn't finish everything you started. Did you expect a rank like this and end up here?
Surprisingly, so because of the pandemic, the AIMS pattern had changed back to its original form. It wasn't the one we were all expecting. It was more concept based, okay, but there were 200 single best responses question, unlike the ones we had expected, like match the following or assertion reason types.
Yeah, so they couldn't because of the pandemic.
Yeah. So basically, my exam actually went well. One of the reasons I personally feel that I wasn't too stressed about it. I was in a good and a calm place. I didn't have many what ifs in my mind. Though I had only revised like 40 to 50% of the subjects, basically their first reading, I could also solve questions from the subjects I hadn't done.
So there are two important things that I pick up from your answer. Number one is that you were very calm and in a very relaxed place. And I think it can only come from two places. One, that you didn't have any kind of expectation out of this exam because you were just giving it as a practice exam on your way to your real exam, that is either the winter session of the Central Institutes or NEET PG 2021. And the second thing was you answered questions from the subjects or topics that you did not prepare from. Now, how is that possible? How did your memory not fail you? Can you attribute this ability to, answer these questions from remote parts of your brain to learning things while you were in your UG or internship?
Yes, actually I can. I remember, for example, there was a question. Basically, I didn't read microbiology enough. And there was a question on leptospirosis. There were symptoms given, and I recall a graph being there. So it suddenly took me back to the medicine ward rounds during my UG days in my college, that KMC Manipal, to which actually I'm grateful for teaching me my academics well. So I could recall this question and answer it correctly.
So that's what I wanted to understand, because you answered questions from subjects that you did not specifically prepare and you got them right. And this just goes to show that your knowledge that you acquire in your undergraduate days, as well as the things you pick up in internship, do not go in vain. So anyone who's listening to this, I want you to not go into work any day of your life thinking that it's going to be a waste. Try to learn something new every day. And I think knowledge honestly comes from anywhere. Watching the OT sister do something specifically, you can pick up so much by just being observant and patient. So Sharon, coming back to you, what else did you do differently in this exam compared to your previous NEET PG?
This time actually I was more cautious about the negative marks, and I reviewed my paper twice or more. Honestly, the exam really went good, but I didn't expect the rank I got. So as soon as I found my roll number against the rank 985, I rushed to my parents and sister to recheck the list once again, because I actually couldn't believe it. I was so happy and shocked too at the same time.
It's so heartwarming, right, when your hard work pays off. So the saying always stays true once again, right? Like, hard work does pay off and consistency never betrays. And it's so cool to hear that part of the story in every topper's or every successful candidate's story, running to the parents and rechecking the rank. It's so unbelievable. So let me just take it to the next step and ask you, what did you do after your results? Because I think that is an interesting predicament to be in. I mean, your preparation is incomplete, but you have gotten a very good rank. How did you move forward?
I tried searching the cutoff list of previous years to look if I can get a seat at AIIMS with this rank. I saw people getting some clinical branches around this rank in the previous sessions in the last of the rounds. So there was a little hope within me of getting a seat, but there was no 100% surety. So I had to continue my original plan of action and carried on with the preparation.
And it's marvelous. I mean, how were you so clear? How were you so clear about it? I mean, able to make up your mind even after the results and continue the preparation and be practical in your approach. I mean, a lot of people would be satisfied by their rank and would sit down, but you still kept on preparing. How is that possible?
I thought whatever I do, I wouldn't compromise with the branch actually. I'm a person who thinks that if I compromise now, it might become my habit in the future. So this was sure that I wouldn't just take up anything which I'll be getting at this rank. I'll only take something if there's no compromise on the branch front. Moreover, this was a huge decision since the branch stays with you your whole life. Basically, so this thought made me push myself and not stop the hustle. Though it did get slowed down for a few weeks. I am no robot.
Obviously.
But life's uncertain and you never know it. So I didn't leave studying.
So that was a very smart thing to do, continue your study plan because you never know. Rank I to hai, but seat milegi ki nahi. So anyways, coming to the real question, was psychiatry really your dream branch? Did you always want it? Because I'm gathering you're a first generation doctor in your family, and most of the first generation doctors that I know don't actually pick up a specialty like this. They usually stick to broad specialties like general medicine or general surgery.
I would not lie to you and jump to a yes. Honestly, I didn't have a clear-cut picture of a dream branch in my mind. So, like you said, I don't come from a family of doctors. So my experiences and exposures is limited in that sense. I was actually envious of many of my friends who knew which one branch they'll be taking up for whatever reason they had.
Okay.
So I did, but know what I didn't want. So it helped me to cut short the list.
I think that's an amazing mindset, right? You knew what you didn't want, and I think starting from that, when you're confused, will help you a lot to make a decision.
True. So basically, starting from the beginning, I wanted a branch with patient interactions. So radio diagnosis and the paraclinicals were struck off. Okay. I wanted a branch which had medicine or was a blend of medicine and surgery. So like obs and gynae or ENT. So basically that was my mindset.
So a safe branch, a branch which you can operate in, and a branch that had good OPD. Now, most of the time, people are able to decide which specialty to pursue. I mean, if they do their internship, even a little bit sincerely. Now, my question to you is: did the internship you did help you make a decision regarding choosing your specialty?
Yes, actually, it helped me at least narrow down the choices. So initially, I had a liking towards dermatology, but during my internship days, I realized it was not a cup of my tea. Okay. So I remember during my PSM postings, I was seeing patients in the OPD. Okay. So a scabies patient comes for consultation. I wrote the prescription after examining those burrows in the web spaces and advised the whole family to do the same treatment. But that day, unconsciously, I started itching myself. So I wonder if it was just psychological. So basically, this event repeated with me when I saw other dermatological cases. This made me realize that this attitude of mine might hinder the patient care if I took up dermatology.
Okay.
And I didn't want to do so. So it was again a no branch for me.
I'm sure a lot of people must have felt this, right? You kind of assume that that disease has caught on to you, and it has happened to many of us. But then, if it was happening to you consistently, I think your whole reason to reconsider this branch was, honestly played out. Now, sometimes people really like reading a subject, but say when it comes to practical aspects of it, they find an enormous disparity between the subject that is actually read and that is actually done. So, did you feel anything like this when you were considering the specialities?
Yeah, actually, I did like subjects like orthopedics in theory.
Wow.
Mostly because of my professors in my college, one of them being Dr. Vivek Pandey, who made the subject I used to actually hate during my 7th semester to the subject I really started liking. So I personally believe that a teacher's role is of utmost importance in making a student like or dislike a subject.
I mean, I agree on all fronts there. I agree, yes. So then why not take orthopedics?
Yeah, then again, I knew I couldn't take orthopedics as a branch because liking theory of a subject, as you said, is one thing, but practicing it is another, which I honestly couldn't imagine myself doing. Similarly, like obs and gynae was in my mind too, but looking around and hearing about its work environment and the level of stress involved, I didn't feel I wanted such a life in my future.
Agreed. Yes, it's definitely hectic, and that is why it should be considered very carefully when making that kind of a choice. Now, I think the work environment should also be looked at when choosing something you're going to do for the rest of your life, because essentially you're marrying into this speciality, and the kind of people that you're surrounded by will be the same for the rest of your life. So I've actually talked about this in great detail in 2 of my videos. I don't know if you've seen it, but anybody who's considering choose us, so you have seen it. All right. So anybody who's considering to take a specialty should watch those videos, because I've talked about it the same. So what is your opinion about, the work environment and the family that I was talking about?
I agree with you totally. We should see the balance, that if you want that kind of life, then only you should choose that kind of specialty.
All right,
that should be kept in mind.
So after dismissing all these things, all these specialties, what were you left with? What did you take? Why did you take psychiatry?
So finally, I was actually left with only handful of options I was going to fill for my counseling session in AIIMS. For me, the dream branch wasn't an instant decision. I was always kind of inclined towards neurosciences and the working of a human mind. And the psychiatry exposure I got during my undergrad days was intriguing to me too. Also, I'm a person who tries not to be judgmental and come to conclusions instantly. So I think that will be helpful to me to be better at my job. And my parents and sister were also encouraging too for this new phase of my life. It took a while for me to make up my mind after figuring out what were my priorities, which branch I'd be happy in, and which would match my temperament as a person.
I like that. I think everyone considering any specialty in any career should think like that. That is what will keep you happy in the long run. You should decide your specialty based on the type of person you are or the type of person you want to be, rather than just trying to mimic somebody.
True, sir. I actually agree with you. I actually remember watching this point being in one of your videos about how to go about choosing your specialty.
Yeah, so that basically summarizes how you should go about choosing your specialty, and I think you made a very valid decision by choosing psychiatry because it fundamentally suits your temperament, the lifestyle you wanted, and the kind of work and life balance that you're looking for. So I wish you all the best in this amazing future.
Thank you, sir.
So before I end this podcast, so it's kind of a ritual. I ask this question to everybody who's a guest on my show. How and when did you start following me, and what kind of value did I bring in your life?
So I started following you after I saw you as my ortho teacher on the Marrow app. The first video actually I saw of you was a Pomodoro method of studying. So basically, it did make a notable impact on me that day. I showed it to my younger sister and parents, and it actually ended up being a dinner table conversation.
I can never imagine that.
I used to actually watch your videos here and there whenever I got time, or if I wanted a specific question to be answered regarding studies, or sometimes watching it in my breaks to get some golden points of motivation and the value they add to my life. I feel that whatever I feel or the questions I face, it's just not me. Since you have made a video on such topics, it must be universal.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that you don't just serve the answer in a platter. It's the journey towards the answer you help in, and thus make it easier to understand ourselves. You basically encourage us students to be individuals rather than just being one in a crowd. This is actually what adds value to my life, to be yourself and shine in your way. So thank you for this huge value in my life.
I just don't have words to say anything. I think I can just say thank you, and I personally feel that your analysis of me kind of giving out universal solutions rather than specific answers is a very observant fact about me, because I get a lot of messages from a lot of students, and it's not that I can't answer individually, but the point is to not answer individually. I make it a point. So what I do is I try to understand the theme of the problem and go deep into it and try to analyze what the essence of that problem is, and I kind of try to solve that essential issue, and I do my best. It's not that I can do it on a regular basis, but whenever I can, I really do it. And thank you for bringing that up. It makes me feel better about myself, because there are people who actually find value out of the work that I do. So thank you, Dr. Sharon, for being on this podcast. It was so nice having you here, and thank you for sharing so much insight about preparation, about being persistent, about not giving up with easy comforts, and hustling more for the seat that you want, and for also making a very calculated decision in terms of selecting your specialty.
Thank you, sir, for having me. It has been an honor.
So thank you very much, and have a great night. Thank you, Dr. Sharon. Thank you for being on the show. For everyone else listening, I hope you have found some value from today's session. Comment below and tell me if you did. Alright guys, keep things simple and stupid. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Comment your questions and suggestions below. I will try to talk about them in my next podcast. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.